معتمد. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I traveled among unknown men. I traveled among unknown men in lands beyond the sea. Nor London, nor England did I know till then what have I bore to thee. 'Tis past that melancholy dream, nor will I quit thy shore a second time, for still I seem to love thee more and more. Among thy mountains did I feel the joy of my desire, and she I treasured turned her wheel beside an English fire. Thy mornings shout, thy nights concealed the boughs where Lucy played, and thin, too, is the last green field that Lucy's eyes surveyed.
Okay, thank you. Now let me ask you about your opinion about this poem. I traveled among unknown men. What is your own opinion about the poem? Before we... Adil, your own opinion.
Yes, Doctor.
Your own opinion.
Yes, Doctor. The poet wants to express his love in England.
No,
He
it's not your.
does.
It's not your own opinion. Thank you, Adil.
Yes.
Zaha Asam.
Yes, I think this poem it's make us to put our feelings like we have to describe our feeling and the imagination. This poem I can't. Sorry, just 1 minute. Yes, and this poem is describe the wild that caused the this. Sorry, I can't.
No,
Sorry.
thank you, Zaha. Who else? Who else? Who else? No one? وجدان.
When I read it carefully, because and I think about it is a poem that forces us to think between two things. I think the nostalgic love um, beyond the country or beyond the earth, and the love, how to say, against a woman. A woman, it is like earth here, the country, the home. So it's very great poem.
Thank you, وجدان. Okay, let's move to حسين. Who will explain it?
Yes, Ustad.
محمد
Muhammad
كريم.
Karim.
محمد كريم. Okay, محمد.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes. Ustad, we divided it. I will explain the first two stanza, and Sabrin will explain the second two stanza.
Okay.
So, yes, I read about this poem on the internet, but I analyzed the lines in my own words. So, in the first line, I will explain line by line. In the first line, when the poet says, "I traveled among unknown men," here in this line, the poet begins with the this line begins with the poet's description of his travels and how he traveled and wandered among men or people he did not know. That means that he is in a strange country other than his own. And the second line, in lands beyond the sea. In this line, we understand more that the poet is traveling outside his country. That is outside the sea of his country, and he is in a country other than his own. But I think so far we don't know what the speaker or the poet feels and what he wants to say. We will get to know about that in the next line. So in the third and fourth lines, nor England did I know till then what love I bore to thee. In these lines, we know that the poet is beaming his mother or native country, which is England, and he did not realize its value at that time, meaning that he is now regretful and yearning for his wishes. He had predicted this love and value before. In the fifth line, when the poet said, "This tis past, that melancholy dream." In this line, we know that these trips happened in the past, and now he describes that trip as sad memory or dream. In the sixth line, nor will I quit thy shore. In this line, he intends not to repeat his mistake again. That is, he will not leave the shores of England again because of the sadness and alienation he saw on his previous trip. In the seventh line, a second time, for still I seem. In this line, almost as in the sixth line, he is determined that he will not leave England again. But here he confirms that he is still on the same decision in the sixth line, that he will not leave his country of England. In the eighth line, to leave thee more and more, to love thee more and more. Here in this line, we see the reason for the poet's decision not to leave England when he speaks to England and says, "I love you more and more." This is because the pain that it happened to him in the past when he traveled. And now his love for his country, which is England, continues over time. And who loves something, of course, will not leave it. I finished that. Do you hear me?
Thank you, Muhammad Karim. Zaha Assam, after Sabine, let us first listen to Sabine, then I will let you speak. Sabine.
Yes, Victor. In the second half of the poem, word war, love for England become combined with his love for Lucy, but in the final stanza, the use of the past tense and the reference to the past green flag that Lucy is served replaced that Lucy has died. World War is beginning, for in England he flight behind and for girl who is on more. Among the mountains that I feel the joy of my desire, and she I shared, trying her while beside in English fire. The boat tells how he enjoyed beginning in England that past he 60 that he was happy in the mountain of the country where he flight joy of his desire. In the second half of the stanza, it becomes clear that the object of his desire was woman. How I would trained well, perhaps as beginning will beside the fireplace, trained fireplace that bounce stand becomes not once again. The morning should shout, they nights cloud constant. The powers where Lucy played, and think to is thinkless green light. The Lucy that Lucy is served. The boat against to addressed England directly descripting the passage of time. He explained how the morning light refused Lucy couch will the night. Conclusion he embraced that Lucy played her offering since the joy in her life. He concluding the stanza and the poem by saying that England great green light are also the last place Lucy as instincting that plays away there. You can say that Lucy life amidst mountains happy and it was there in those mountains that William flight her joy. Then he goes on to speak of the whole the English that was part Lucy trained the whole display in English fire. The English saw showed the part where Lucy placed and the English knight hide them, and it was English fight that Lucy was less wise. Conclusion. William Wordsworth write a beautiful and say love poem in which he talks of his love for his love Lucy. The poem takes round from the poet sing. He messed and his human land to the poet speaking of Lucy that still used in the second stanza when makes sense. England was where the poet's love Lucy died, and it he found himself to love England more and more. England to the poet is Lucy to him. At Lucy the two things mean that same and missing one he missed the weather and discover the delight of his love for one. He discovered this delight of his life for the weather. Literary device. Rain is coming. of AP. The last words of first and third lines and of second and fourth lines rhyme with each other. British. There is some Britishin in the last line of the second stanza in the from, in the more, the and more, in the name is repetition, and in the last stanza. Limitation. There is some limitation in this third line, the second stanza. Second time for still I seem. Major. There is some major in the last stanza. We can see Lucy stand yonder. Look. Show of bold try looking out at they with green flies and fling. Town. The town of the poem. That beginning feel of the poem skins on this town's two sides in the last two stanzas.
Have you finished or not?
Finish.
Do you want to add something?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sabine. Who want to add? إسراء مؤيد. Okay, زهاء عصام.
Yes, دكتور.
زهاء then إسراء مؤيد.
Okay, I have an idea, but I'm not sure about it. I think this poem that have intertextuality with the Christian, because Wordsworth belongs to Christian religion, and when Muhammad said he will love England forever, I think he will not love England because it is great country or something like that, but he will love it because his love in it, die in it, and there is a Christian religion that when anybody die, he will grow with the tree or the earth or with the wild. So I don't know if it's true or not.
Can you repeat your idea, Zaha? If someone die, he will turn to a tree?
No, not Taryn. Not Taryn. His soul will stay or grow with the tree or the wild.
Will go?
Yes.
In Christian, this idea, we
Yes.
can find this idea in Christian?
Yes. I
For
don't
the
know.
first time. No. This is for the first time I hear such
Yeah,
like
me
that.
too.
Something
The
like
first time, so I don't know if it is true or wrong. So I ask you.
maybe, but I'm not sure about that. Thank you,
Okay.
Zaha. إسراء مؤيد. إسراء.
Yes, دكتور.
Okay. Do you want to say anything? إسراء.
Yes, دكتور بس ما قاعد أسمع زين.
Do you want to say anything? Do you want to add?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to clear the last poem. يعني اشرح القصيدة اللي بعدها.
Thank you, محمد كريم.
Yes. I want to add information. Here we already see the poet in this poem yearns once for his country and once for his beloved, who was in his country and she did. So at the beginning he talks about his sadness from travel and his longing and pride for his country, and then connects this love and longing for his country by mentioning his beloved.
Maybe he's suffering from homesick.
Yes.
Because he said, I traveled among unknown men. That means he is in unfamiliar place or a new place. He is a stranger in a new place. In the first
Yeah.
4 lines, he said, I travel among unknown place in land beyond the sea. No England did I know till then. Focus on the second line in land beyond the sea. This means that maybe France. I will return to it later. In lands beyond the sea. No England did I know till then what love I brought to thee. He is, he feels, or he is sick with homesick. Uh, he feels nostalgia to his own country. He is longing for his own country because when someone travel for the first time, or even not for the first time, he travel abroad. Uh, he will look or long for his own country. We call it homesick. الحنين إلى الوطن. Then he said, it's past that melancholy dream, nor will I quite the short a second time, for still I seem to love thee more and more. Let me ask the other students, Zaha Jabbar.
يس دكتور.
Okay, do you want to?
دكتور عندي ملخص حول هاي القصيدة.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. This poem was composed, and the speaker is the poet himself, telling you how felt when we was the fair away from England, and this is evident in the second line in the lands beyond the sea, and which means that he was aboard in a foreign country and a man forget a noun pupil. And however, in the second stanza, he is back in England, describing his expensive abode as the wind, and because he was far away for England, he felt homesick and sad, and that way he described never to leave England again. And this is express his love of the country. And for still I seem to love three more and more. However, his love of England related to his love of Lucy. He loved England because a man here mentioned he had felt the love of Lucy, and she had played three and grown up. And he loved the morning of England because the sun shone it show the green place. And where Lucy used to play, and he loved even the night because when the sun set and direct hate this place, and the green flight of England were the last place Lucy you as had seen before she dies.
Thank
And
you, Zaha. Thank you, Zaha. Let's move to the. Anyone want to add? No one? Okay. وجدان.
Yes, about the theory of the poet, but
Not now.
and
Not now.
no,
Later.
yes,
Not
I know
now.
later. But about what Zahra said now, about he talks about the morning of his country. I think we will see in the next poem what the morning mean. So I will talk when we finish the next poem.
Thank you. Now حسين هلال. A slumber did my spirit seal. أسلم بردد my spirit seal. وين حسين؟ حسين هلال. حسين هلال.
يس دكتور.
والأستاذ ولد السلام مؤيد وحسين.
دكتور إسلام مؤيد أول مرة.
Okay. So read the poem.
Yes, دكتور. Yes. ويليام دكتور تسمعني؟
أسمعك.
Yes. William Worth was born in 7 April.
أسلم بردد my spirit seal. القصيدة. ما
Yes.
قلت تحطيني على وقت سؤال.
Yes. As number did my sprite seal, I had no
Spirit.
spirit seal, I had no human fears. She seemed a thing that could not feel the touch of earthly earth. No mission has she
No
now.
motion.
No motion has she now. No force she neither hears
Neither.
neither hears nor sees rolled around in earth's diurnal course with rocks and stones and trees.
تلفظك ما شاء الله.
دكتور هل متوترة ولا أصلا قريت أكثر
يا
من مرة؟
متوتر شنو؟ هو ايش عندنا؟ اوكي go ahead.
Yes. detail meaning summary للقصيدة. Yes. Slimber did my bright seal is one of the 5 Lucy poems, a cluster of elegies about the death of a young lady named Lucy. Though she remains unnamed in this poem, which brings to Wordsworth the realization that bad things can happen in the beautiful world. In this poem, the poet seems to be moralizing Lucy's death, as he described and practice life beyond death. The poem is mere 8 lines long, 2 stanzas. The first stanza reveals the poet's innocent unawareness about the fact that one day Lucy to old age or meet her death like other human beings. The second stanza deal with her death that has made her missionals fossils and without the faculties of sight and hearing. However, the boat is its base even after losing Lucy to death because he finds that she has become an inseparable part of the earth by mingling with the rocks.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thanks.
You must learn how to read, and you must develop your skills in reading and speaking.
Yes, Doctor, yes.
Because I didn't understand anything from you. It's difficult to understand anything. You are a student at 3rd level. Next year you will graduate. I don't know how will you graduate in such way. You must develop your skills. اوكي ثانك يو سا. حسين هليل.
Yes دكتور إن شاء الله.
Yes دكتور.
The last four line.
Yes دكتور. Explorers validated my spirit self. Stanza 1. I had no human first. I seemed think that could not fail. I thought early years. The speaker of slumber did my spirit cell begin by describing the stars that he has been living in for extended period of time. Some have preferred the idea that the speaker was himself, but when the poem is taken with the other for Lucy poem, it is more like the speaker is the person with which was word closely related to beginning of the short but complex narrative to speaker thought he has been by slumber. His spirit has been state up in trance like stars that has kept him foreseeing the truth of the world. Stanza 2. She under hers no sea. Red round either calls in the second stanza the wood and the stones and the trees. The speaker forced to come to his sons. He see that she has did and regret. She also now have monitoring. She does not have the because she has preferred to move her on by or the will the sunboard of his that she did when she was alive. That does not mean that he is unaffected by her deed. He is surprised and shocked by the change in his speaker future on her new condition. Signed no, she honorable either her or see the early years have taken the sins away for her and have confined her to of either course she embraced it and changed by no she has the daily progress of time just like anyone else communicated her pleased with the earth and then even uh, more important
Thank you حسين.
yes. Thank you so much.
Somebody did my spirit seal. He said that I had no human fear. I'm not afraid. Why? Because Lucy now is dead. She seemed a thing that could not feel. She cannot feel because she is no more alive. No motion has she now. She cannot move. She don't have the ability to move. She cannot hear or see. Why? Because she is dead now. Then he said all around. It means that she is now in her grave with rocks and the stone and the trees. She become as a part of nature. That's it. There's nothing else in this poem. Who want to add? Who want to add about this poem? Anyone want to add? Hmm. Okay, let's move to the third poem. She dwelt among untrodden way.
Yes, Dad. Can I
Okay,
add,
Papa.
add in this poem about skirts?
انتظار.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The theme of this poem it is talk about the idea is life, death, and life after death. The poem like is all Lucy poem try the subject of her death Those moments of them is immortalized of the human soul. William Wordsworth immortalizes Lucy by stat that she lost in nature after her physical day.
Thank you, انتظار. Thank you. Let's move to Ala Jawad. Ala Jawad. She dwelt among untrodden ways.
حنين.
حنين ولا آلاء؟
أستاذ حنين.
وجدان مطيتنا آلاء كاتبة.
إيه غيرنا.
Okay, حنين. Go ahead.
She dwelt among the untrodden ways by William Wordsworth. She dwelt among the untrodden ways. Based the springs of Dove. Amid whom there were known to brace, and in very view to love. A volleyed by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye. First fire as a star, when only one is shining in the sky. She lived unknown and view, cold now, when Lucy kisses to be. But she is in her grave, and oh, the difference to me.
منو هاي حنين تحكي؟
أي أستاذ أنا.
حنين ما شاء الله.
أستاذ.
عمته طلاب ثالث.
يعني غلط؟
كله غلط. عيديها.
تمام. She dwelt among the untrodden ways. Based the springs of Dove.
ليش اسمها ايش قلتيها؟
Based.
اخاف اسب صعدك واسبوحي. اي والله. كملي حنين.
The springing
خل اقول لكم شيء امتحانكم الشهوي حضوري ان شاء الله كملي.
amid whom there were known to braces and view to love. A violet by a mossy stone. Violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye.
ولد حنين. هاي
استاذ العين
حنين. العين
يعني هي يعني الاي بلا
اي وجدان قيل القصيدة. وجدان قيها.
Yes. Just a minute. She dwelt among the untrodden ways, beside the springs of Dove, with whom there were none to prize, and very few to love. A violet by a mossy pond, half hidden from the eye, fair as a star when only one is shining in the sky. She lived unknown, and you could know when Lucy caused to be. But she is in her grave, and oh, the difference to me.
وجدان.
من استاذ
شوحي. تمام. يا الله.
She dwelt among the untrodden ways. Was written in 1798. This poem is Wordsworth. Best known. The poem is Wordsworth. Best known work from a series of the 5 tests that from his Lucy. Series in the series Wordsworth. examines and ideals and love from Lucy, a girl who has died young. Young. The poem examines loneliness and loss, but also unrecognized beauty and
حنين
she
جاي
dwells
نضيع وقت.
تمام.
ثانك يو حنين. Okay, who can explain this poem? Because I have many. سجا عيسى راضي. يلا سجا. عندكم هالاسم؟ شعور ما اسمع
Yes,
هذا الاسم. اوكي سجا.
yes, teacher. Yes. In the first stanza, present the girl as lonely, isolated character associated by very few people. It's presented the girl as an exceptional character. Her beauty is shown through the word spring of dove, made far more. The word spring indicate a mouth of a river, so it can add the idea of remotions to أكمل الستانزات?
Go ahead.
Yes. In the second stanza, the place where Lucy lived beside the spring of Dove, the poet brings out simple, ordinary images which are more appropriate to describe a character of a maid. Through a metaphor, the poet sees the girl as a violet that covered with mossy stone. The girl's hidden simplicity and modesty more by saying that the violet is covered with mossy stone too. So it adds more to her loneliness and isolation. Again, the poet uses a simile to enhance the loneliness of the girl. It shows the unseen and unnoticed beauty of the girl. The girl is compared.
Go ahead. Go continue, Saja.
Yes, the girl is compared to a star as it is mentioned as a single star that appears. It highlights the brightness of the girl.
Thank you, Saja. Who else? Who else? وجدان.
Yes, about all the poem.
Continue with explaining the lines.
Okay, Saja, where were you? Where are you? Okay. Which line?
Fair
Yes,
as a star when only
third,
one.
the last stanza.
Okay. So there is a star when only one is shining in the sky. So the nation of William is found in the woman described in the poem. To be pretty is demonstrated by use of the word fair. So furthermore, this is shown through her being compared to a star. A star is bright and she has a long been of to mankind, to our humanity. So though others may not have noticed her, the poet noticed her brightness. Sorry, yet again, and he highlights her illusion from people, not only her dwelling place, Romet. She is vibrant, unique, but alone. She is somehow managed to stand out of the boat or of. So we can sense the true affection here. Just
Okay. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Ujdan. Okay, this poem is about a lady, a young woman named Lucy, lived in a place a few of people know about her. She lived near to the source of the Dove River. Dove River is central England. Lucy was young, unmarried. She didn't get the appreciation she deserved in life, uh, and so very few people loved or know her. She was like Violet next to a big Moses stone. The result that at the end, no one appreciated her beauty, and she died gently, and no one noticed her death. So, the speaker is the poet himself, or unidentified speaker, but uh, maybe he's the poet, uh, and he mourns Lucy, who died young. The first stanza, uh, Lucy was worthy of love and prize despite being unknown. Uh, the poem starts with she dwelt among unintuitive ways. It means that establish a context of ambiguity and Lucy ways or the place she lived were untrodden, meaning a few people, you know, a few people visit her or walk over to see her. And she dwelt there, believing that she rarely left her place. Uh, and also her chance of meeting other people were very few. This is why there is none to praise her because very few know about her. Then, in second stanza, he compares the speaker, or Wordsworth, uh, compares Lucy to a flower. Violet describing her as a violet by a messy stone, half hidden from the eye. Because Lucy's isolation, her beauty was not widely noticed. She was like a subtle flower in the shadows. Lucy also compared to a star. She's uh, she's as fair as the fairest star in the evening sky. Maybe there is a reference to Venus, the the goddess of beauty. Lucy is fair, beautiful, because she is isolated and therefore unique. And also, she keeps shining at night. Then uh, the speaker says. Seriously underappreciated. Lucy was alive. During her life, Lucy lived unknown. Her beauty was unprized. Her situation continued after her death because a few people noticed her. Uh, the tense in the change in tense of the story or sentence from past to present show that the situation remains the same during life and after her death. Lucy is in her grave now. Lucy's memory survives. Uh, this poem gives a fuller portrait or image about Lucy. She was a beautiful and uh, live an isolated place, uh, maybe in English countryside near the River Dove. Her presence were short, isolated enough to influence few. So he used the contrast between life and death. As you know, at this poem, I think you took this poem in your first year. I think in introduction to literature. This poem, in this poem, we have contrast between life and death, illustration, for example. We have simile, we have metaphor, and etc. This is what all most of us know about Lucy. So, do you want to add something? Because before I go deeply inside the poems or inside Wordsworth theory, do you want to add something about the poems? Anyone want to add? Ala, and after Ala, Ujdan.
Yes, Doctor. I want to add a note about 3 poems.
Okay, what are they? What are these notes?
I note in this poem, in the 3 poems of Lucy, always ended with the subject of Lucy death, and I feel that William Wordsworth lose of Lucy affected in his life and his future and his poetry. So what I notice in this 3 poem. William Wordsworth compound with the love of women, the love of nature, the love of homeland in beautiful way. دكتور هم عندي إضافة فكرة يعني هيش خطرت ببالي ممكن ما أدري إذا صحيح.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think that maybe Lucy is the same England because England was very beautiful and was characterized by a beautiful nature. But when the industrial revolution happened, England lost a large part of nature and lost a large of countryside. As child labor spread widely and all the rights were confiscated. يعني دكتور هي نفسها لوسي نفسها انجلاند.
Thank you. Okay. Ujdan?
Yes, about the idea of Allah, I have some idea too. Now, I get them now. I think here, I don't believe that Lucy actually truly women or true character. But I think because the poet don't accept the idea of the death, he just created in the poetry because you will discuss with us the theory of the poetry, and I know that his theory that says that the poet is a soul, so he created the soul in his poem. So this is my idea. And I want to talk something about his poetry, if I can now.
Okay, Ujdan. What do you want to say about his poetry?
About he has some sublime concept of poetry. According to him, poetry is the soul or the spirit, and the spirit is most to be a create of all the knowledge. So it is an emotional experience of that everyone's faces. Yeah.
Excellent.
So it is not only defines poetry, it is also explain the process involved with the producing. So the poetry of that he said, his theory of poetry is comprehensive. Yeah, and in the sense that it tell us his qualification of the poetry. So he said that you have to check something positive in poetry. The poetry has should have a purpose or a goal. So
excellent.
That's it.
Thank you, Ujdan. Okay, let me ask you, Lucy. What do you think Lucy is stand for? What? This name Lucy stands for what? Fatma Hussein.
She may be his sister, Dorothy, who lived in this isolated and solitary life close to nature, may be beloved, and maybe an imaginary lovely lady who lived and died unknown, or maybe nature, or his childhood friend whom he was in love with before her early death.
Thank you, Fatima. Maybe. Zaha Asam.
I think in this time every girlfriend will be die. They called her Lucy. This
So
name.
maybe Lucy referred to England or his sister or
Or his
to
love.
or his love,
Yes.
or to he is referring to the French Revolution. Maybe. Now, let me start because I think we finished about 1 hour. I will now explain and give you some important notes. Some notes mentioned by Wujdan, like for his critical theory or his theory about poetry. Before that, let me give you a short introduction about Lucy poems. You know, uh, the French Revolution began in 1789, but there exist various and sometimes contradictory ideas about the time. Uh, they said they didn't agree when it ended. For instance, some believe that the revolution ended just 3 years after the beginning in 1792, when September massacre happened and thousands of people executed. Uh, Other specified times uh, according to them, to the others, are 1795 or 1799, or even 1804. Some of them said the revolution had ended up in 1792. Uh, they believed that by the September massacre and after the Reign of Terror, the French Revolution ended. Why it's important? Because during that time, Wordsworth moved to France when he said in land in poem, forget it. In land beyond the sea, I told the man Ghana men. Line number 2, he said in land beyond the sea. So maybe Lucy is a symbol. In all 5 poems, the poet talks about non-existence or death of Lucy. But who is Lucy? As Fatima said, maybe Dorothy, his sister, or as Zahra said, uh, his girlfriend, his wife. But many believe that Wordsworth described Lucy with such a lovely sentimentalism and passionate emotion that we cannot take Lucy into consideration just an imaginary entity. Maybe you can say that his mysterious character Lucy stands for the revolution in France. Lucy in his poem dies after 3 years in a tour that the poet may have portrayed Lucy death as a symbol of the loss of ideals. Example, the aspiration of the revolution, the French Revolution. Uh, Lucy and her character in these 5 poems uh, are the poet's language but lost ideals of the French Revolution in France, uh, which are remembered and recollected in tranquility, as we have said in his when we described his or explained his definition to poetry. In very real scenes, Lucy, in a new historic outlook, maybe is the product of history that has taken root in the poet's mind. Maybe So Lucy can be the French Revolution, which is the poetic creative imagination. Lucy lives in Wordsworth's mind and actually is the queen of his mind. So we must search for Lucy inside Wordsworth's mentality. When we reach the last poem, she dwelt among untrodden way. The poet has come to this understanding that Lucy is a symbol of the French Revolution. Maybe not possess the former vigor and is left isolated due to its diversions. Maybe if a few people can be found to have a mind devoted to the primary and ambitious aspiration of the revolution. Actually, many people have banished Lucy because they may have come to know with the grim results of her uh, possible disastrous consequences, such as political radicalism, the killing of the king, or execution of the king. This accident can be ascribed to the beginning of September massacre. If we take Lucy into consideration as an ideal beloved that lives just in the poet's unconscious mind, and that this ideal beloved is the source of poetic inspiration for him. Maybe what we have said is true. We can say that the growth of violet among amorphous stones means that the French Revolution has occurred amid numerous obstacles and troublesome situations. The stone can imply the French monarch and difficult and distressing situation which the monarch has caused. Violet, on the other hand, is the symbol of love and resistance. For example, it's also a symbol of Lucy revolution. This violet goes up alongside a moss stone, which can refer to the corrupt French government. The poet compares Lucy to a fair star that embodies her singularity, for example. When the French Revolution occurred, the same uniqueness was applied to it, and even it was compared to the tradition prophecy. But when the revolution deviated from its ideal for people, such William Wordsworth, they gradually leaned toward more conservative conservative sides, for example, or idea. He become more conservative. Why? Because he got disillusioned toward its course, because he realized what it led to. At the end of the poem, it seems that Lucy has gone, but the poet declares her death in the third poem. He declares her death in the third poem. She dwelt among untrodden way. He said Lucy becomes just as like the revolution debates 3 years after initiation. Many maybe star in this poem refer to the place and position of poetry in the material and the textual world, but we cannot ignore the fact that star can also stand for the poet's unique and singular vision toward the revolution, which gradually declines. Also, the two attitude ways may embody the mentality of those people who had not even dared to imagine the revolution and also emphasize the greatness of such happening. Maybe, uh, maybe it's maybe Lucy refer to the French Revolution because he was concerned with poverty and the social problems in his own country. Uh, this is the important note about Lucy itself. But we have something important, something else important, is that what Wujdan said is Wordsworth theory, Wordsworth's own theory. You know, Wordsworth, Wordsworth's theory stated in the 1801 in his lyrical ballad and the preface. He attacks the central tenet of the 18th century critical doctrine. Uh, he attacks the theory of decorum. That theory call on poets to choose corresponding subject matter and the style according to hierarchy of genre ranging from humble pastoral to lofty epic. Uh, this decorum had been featured of poetic theory since the Greek and Romans, uh, and also as codified by 18th century. Uh, the theory influenced the new classical and uh, new classical character of that period, so that much of the poetry produced conform a different kind of genres and theme. But Wordsworth insisted on a new contract between writer and reader. Wordsworth modified traditional notions of the proper domain of poetry. The contract Wordsworth proposes in his preface involves the poet fidelity to his own mood and feeling as he expresses. As he expresses, he said that the essential passion of the heart and the beautiful and permanent forms of nature. He said, instead of applying external rules of composition according to a pre-established convention, for example, uh, putting an elevated style to an big theme of love and war, Wordsworth assumes a new decorum springing from the writer's own intimated experience with nature and articulated in a natural idiom. He suggests that, or this a new decorum suggests a different kind of subject matter because in Wordsworth's if you the patients exist in the purest form in simple rural life. Um, Simple rural life in ordinary people and humble activity, for example, these become acceptable poetic theme. Uh, this rural life, for example, can be presented realistically rather than hidden in allegorical typing of the pastoral modes. Use simple language because it has a value in and it of itself. In addition, uh, the poet, the poet's own passions become proper domain of poetry, and also maybe one consequence of the themes or autobiographical themes of the romantic is more frequent to use lyric moods, for example, such as the ode, sonnet, or meditative poem. Wordsworth also attacks on the old theory of decorum called includes hostility to the rhetorical figures of speech that elevated diction, which many 18th century, for example, uploaded as delightful artificial. He said that use a simple language. He said that use a simple language possesses a doctrine of sincerity and authenticity. In his view, the poet is not a primarily skilled artist, but rather a man speaking to men. So he was calling for the use of easy language. Poetic language then must be the common currency of humanity, not a specialized vocabulary addressed to an elite or to the noble men or educated men. Even Wordsworth's definition of poetry reflects the newness of aesthetic approach according to its origin from emotion collected in tranquility. As we have said before, this definition of poetry treats it not as a product, treats the poetry not as a product, formal end, but creative process which originated in mood, feelings, and sensation. So Wordsworth's proposal were revolutionary in that they opened the subject matter of poetry to include the realistic presentation of common experience and common life, as well as broadening the linguistic resource. For example, the language resource available, make them available to the reader. At the same time, many of Wordsworth's ideas were linked to the Romanticism views on poetry, like his definition, for example. So, what he want to say? He want to say that use simple language, use the image of nature, so your literature will become easy to understand and maybe reach its own goal. That's all what we have about Wordsworth critical theory. So Wordsworth, one of the most important figures in the English literature, give us a definition, important definition, and also an important theory about poetry. And by the way, Wordsworth is very important to us because he was the father of the free verse poetry in Arabic. Badr Shakir Sayab taught from Wordsworth the shaping of the free verse or the contemporary or the modern poetry. Okay, I don't have anything else. Who want to add? Anyone want to add? Anyone want to add? No one? Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else. Let me see. زهاء عصام.
دكتور مو مشاركة بس على وقت المحاضرة.
ايش بيه؟
الجدول الأستاذ مالتنا بلكي تحت شوية القسم إنه إذا أنت عندك مجال أو